Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of M3GAN. My name is Daniel. I am one of your hosts today, and joining alongside me for the first time in the new year are my fellow dolls, Anthony and Shahbaz. How you guys doing? Shay, I'm going to start with you.
I'm doing great. I'm updated. I have no more updates left. Firmware is good. I won't kill anyone. I promise. Fingers crossed.
I
might
don't like the way you
might
said
kill
that,
Anthony though, just because I feel like Anthony wants to kill me. I want to get to him first. I want
I
to
would
kill
hit
you
you
first
first.
before you kill
I'm
me.
already killed.
No.
You're already dead, man. That's the
Wait,
thing.
how?
You don't know. You're already dead.
Wait, is this like the Sixth Sense? Like I've been dead this whole time?
Yeah, we're all dead.
Spoiler for those who
am I
haven't seen
talking
Sixth
to right
Sense.
now?
We're all dead. We're all dead right now.
Damn.
I think we're safe to do spoilers for
the Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense. Real quick before we go into our review, I want to ask you guys really quickly how much time is good for you guys before we get into spoilers for a film. Obviously, this review of M3GAN spoiler free.
Spoiler free.
But when is enough time to go into spoilers for a film?
Personally, like if it's gonna be in movies and like on mainstream media, give it at least a year. I think a year.
Oh, interesting.
You know, like if a movie's gonna reference a movie,
Oh, we're going
you know what I
to
mean?
reference it. Yes. Okay.
yeah, like
Got you,
that's
got
what
you,
I
got you.
mean. And like on TV and stuff, but on Twitter, like opening weekend, and then after that, it's like
2 weeks, right?
two.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think
would say
opening
for a
weekend, and then a couple days right after, maybe
I would say
5
a
days
couple of
max.
days. Couple of days.
Couple days.
I'm an adult.
Couple
you know?
days
like,
from when we watch it
we-
at press screeners.
we can
Just-
deal with
we'll just
things
spoil
like
everything.
that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like we're adults at
Yeah.
the end of
Yeah,
the
I got
day.
you.
Like there's nothing in this world that can spoil us.
Like
Just-
I watched.
Yeah, but also like there's also people who don't want to know stuff.
I
right?
know,
So
but see,
that's
they,
also-
they have to grow up and like be adults and not have that
Peter Pan all of a
let
sudden?
don't let spoilers control your life. Like it's just gonna happen. Let it happen, man.
I think if you are looking forward to something, and this is just my advice, if you're looking forward to something, stay away from social media or block a lot of the keywords that you think you're gonna get.
Yes.
I do the same thing if I know that I won't be able to watch XYZ the day of, because honestly, on Twitter or wherever
Don't
you go,
spoil XYZ yet. I haven't seen it.
it's really good. But
Okay.
on the day of, people will start spoiling right away. Like it happens. So I'll mute
It's
those
true.
words. But when a show, I just watched The White Lotus season 2, for example, phenomenal. I luckily didn't have anything spoiled for me. I kept away from any tweets. I was as soon as I see White Lotus, I'd swipe up, and then
Right.
I watched it, and I was good.
Okay.
But now
I
it's
like
all
it,
over
I like
Twitter.
it. It's everywhere. You cannot escape it. You cannot escape the White Lotus. But I will say, as we said at the top of the show, this is our first time recording in the new year, and what a way to start the year than with a review of M3GAN. A couple, housekeeping things that I want to get through before we get to our spoiler-free review. Of course, this is the movie podcast. If this is the first time you're hearing of us, thank you for being here. We have brand new episodes every single week. A lot of them drop throughout the week with interviews, reviews, discussions on all the latest movies and series. If you want to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd, the best place to do that is at the Movie Podcast. So don't miss out. We have lots of incredible, posts and content waiting for you. Right now, we have Michelle Ang, who plays Omega in The Bad Batch, Star Wars: The Bad Batch. Right now on our Instagram feed, we also have our interview with Mary McCartney. That is the daughter of Sir Paul McCartney of the Beatles, who was, I'm still like, it's still pretty surreal to know that, she was on our show. So thank you to Disney for making that happen. But yeah, we have a lot of incredible interviews and reviews and main episodes of the show out now on the Movie Podcast feed. So make sure you go listen to all of that. And 2023 is going to be even bigger. You thought 2022 was big. 2023, we are going to explode. It's going to be
We're
huge.
coming for your head.
We're a nuclear bomb, eh?
Oh.
We're Oppenheimer.
Oh.
Before
Well, that's going to be
Oppenheimer.
coming out this year, so.
That is this year, and it's
Yeah.
also a Universal Pictures film, which is also the same studio that is, releasing M3GAN. So it all comes
Absolutely.
full circle. For those of you watching on YouTube, you may be seeing that Shay is rocking a really, really cool movie podcast variant shirt. Shay, go ahead and model that off. Model it like you're M3GAN. Do the M3GAN dance while you're.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do your M3GAN dance.
That was pretty good.
I only remember that part.
like
What
it.
else was it?
There's a backflip. Do the backflip.
There's a
Oh,
backflip.
I
if you
got-
could do it.
I
Oh, that
got-
was good.
I have an
was
obstruction
good.
behind me. I can't
Do
do
the
it.
backflip. No, you can do
Do
it.
the-
Well, you have a
the
bed
backflip.
you could jump off of. That's
I
good.
could.
That's
You want me to
good.
start
I
jumping on
like
my
that.
bed? Is that what you want me to do next?
Yes. I want you to jump on your bed. That'd be great. No, but again, the movie we are talking about today.
We should
is
say
M3GAN
who
and Shay.
designed this logo though.
We did. We have our great friend Vivian who designed that, and we're really hoping that we'll be able
Owed
to,
by Viv.
to get these shirts to you one day on the
They're
movie
really
podcast too.
nice.
So if you like
From a
what we're doing,
distance, they kind
they're
of look
really
like
nice,
planet Earths. They look like
right?
planet Earths from a distance. They look like little like
Because the world does
continents.
revolve around us. So
Yeah.
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 I mean, maybe
Sh-
not on my camera.
No.
No,
But
just
shout out to Sweet Peach Creative as well too for making the shirts for us as well
Absolutely.
too. So that's also my sister. So that's a little plug there. Family business.
Insider trading.
But
Insider trading.
Insider trading, exactly. That is what's happening right now. But let's get to M3GAN. This has been a film that I think has taken over the internet in the last couple months. This film is directed by Gerard Johnstone, and it's going to be releasing in theaters January 6th, this Friday. Of course, this review will be spoiler-free. I want to say thank you to our friends at Universal Pictures Canada for inviting us to watch this film for a review. Anthony, tell us what it's all about.
When Gemma suddenly becomes the caretaker of her orphaned 8-year-old niece, Cady, she decides to pair her M3GAN prototype with Cady in an attempt to resolve both problems, a decision that will have unimaginable consequence.
Shay, take us away with your first reactions to M3GAN.
M3GAN is wild. It is an insane ride. It is so much fun. And here's the thing, I thought about a lot when I was driving home at this movie, and I was like, they could have done this in so many different ways. They could have made this movie just a straight up Chucky, but female, and then kind of go from there. And we've already had that Chucky female version out there as well. But this movie did something a little bit different. It is a horror movie, but it's more of a thriller, I'd say. It really captures that sense of fear and dread. But we know at the end of the day that it's a doll. Like it's so silly. It's a toy. It's something that artificial intelligence has created. How do you kind of reinvent that a little bit? You make the movie as self-aware as the doll, and you do that by just having fun with it. This movie is silly, it's fun, it's just a wild time, and you're kind of just laughing along with it. I laughed obviously more times than I was scared. The jump scares are predictable, you kind of know where it's going, but that's like the joy of this movie. It is meant to be watched with a crowd. It is meant to be just laughed at, or with, I think mostly with, I guess you could say. And overall, it's just good, thrilling fun. The whole time you're just kind of like, okay, what is she going to do next? What is she going to say next? What is the next song she's going to sing? Because guess, she has some great needle drops that she does, and I absolutely loved it. And her relationship with Cady in this movie is really genuine. There's a level of innocence to it that you kind of start to see. And everyone in this movie, I think, does a phenomenal job. There's a lot of great performances because they really sell that they're like kind of blown away by this AI doll that is coming to life and starting to kill people. Or hey, like, was that M3GAN that did that? And guess it was M3GAN that did that.
It
Absolutely.
was M3GAN that did that, yeah.
This
and
movie,
you want to see M3GAN do that, right?
You want to see
that's
it,
the thing. I
and
think
you're kind of rooting for her
because we've seen this. We're familiar with the tropes of this film, and you do root for her. That's exactly it. Like you're like, I want to see this doll become self-aware. I want to see her go on a crazy killing spree, or protect Cady, or do these crazy things, because that's kind of what you're here for. And the movie is in on that joke, and the movie is so aware of what it is. Where I think that's what really works for me.
It's really
and
winking and nodding at
you're
you.
saying. It is, and M3GAN was programmed to do that. I'm not gonna lie. Like when I came into the studio today, after having seen this film, I asked Siri, "Don't turn on Siri," to turn on my lights, and I kind of looked at it for a second. And I'm like, "What do you know about me? What have you heard?
I did
Are
the
you studying
same.
me right now?" It makes you think. And again, like as silly as this movie is, and as out there as the concepts are, there's also that enough of a real life parallel that you're just like, yeah, maybe like dolls and AI listening to us all this time isn't the greatest thing.
I feel like you're gonna duck in a second, Daniel. Like you're gonna duck to pick something up, and then behind you is gonna be a Siri doll just holding a knife trying to kill you. And Anthony and I will just have to watch it all go down. And it might be our best episode yet, I'll be honest.
It will. So really quickly though, before I kick it over to Anthony to give his thoughts, we got to the theater a bit earlier because we knew this was going to be packed screening. There was what we believe to be a static image on the screen of M3GAN. And for like 15 minutes, I was trying to convince Shane Anthony, and I'm like, yo, this thing is blinking, because it would blink at random moments every 5 to 6 minutes. So I'd be looking at it. I'd be like, all right, blink, 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 and then they would be like, guys, I'm not looking at it anymore. And then I would see her blink, and I'm like, she did it, or her eyes would move, or her face would move, and then eventually, I hope they saw her moving afterwards. Maybe they
Well,
won't
yeah,
admit to her.
she
moving,
literally
yeah.
started having conversations with us, right?
She did start
Yes.
talking,
Like-
but I think anything before that she didn't do.
No, that
Right.
was
No,
clearly not.
100%.
There
Even
was-
if she did, we didn't acknowledge it because it was like, no,
we didn't acknowledge it.
let's try
It's
to
like, guys,
make.
I have evidence.
There was a point where Daniel was losing his mind, and we were trying to
Yeah.
get him to lose his mind before this movie started. So,
Right.
you know, we were about to admit him at one point. And
Yeah.
we were like,
But you know what? Luckily,
couldn't
she
do it.
started talking, and everyone in the theater started seeing her talk, and then we were okay.
which I think they should
Anthony,
have done.
please.
They should have done that beforehand. Like at least they just to kind of restart the time while you're waiting. It's just like she would have like these quirky things to say. That would have been great.
Yeah.
But
I like that.
for
Anthony,
me,
jump in. Give us your first reaction.
for me, M3GAN was I think for me it was a misfire. Like I just couldn't get into the story. I thought I was expecting it to be a horror film with this machine AI that becomes self-aware who wants to protect this girl and will go through anything to kind of continue to live and continue to protect her. But it took a really long time to get there. I would say like the first 30 minutes is just like that buildup, and it just kind of dragged on. And then when we saw it, that's when I knew, okay, we're not going down that route of horror where we see intense gore, intense, horrific images that this robot goes through. And that's kind of like where my mind was, and I think that's where I thought this movie was going to kind of head into. But you know, it's a fun movie. I think a lot of people laughed more than they did kind of shudder or scream or kind of in shock. That there was more laughter, and I didn't know if that was the best take for this film. Again, maybe this movie's not meant for me, and I definitely wasn't. It didn't speak to me, but I just felt like when you laugh at a film like this, it draws me as an audience member out. So it's like, okay, I'm not in this element anymore. I wanted to be this horror film, and I felt like I wanted it to be this Terminator / Chucky type of scenario. And then
Right.
it just didn't go down that route. It also, the characters I never felt fearful for the characters, you know? Like they never felt like I was really, holy shit, these characters are going to die soon, or there's going to be a scenario where that it will shock me and the people in this scene. It never felt that way. It just, maybe at the end, right at the end, that's kind of when it hit. But I think for me, the movie kind of missed the mark.
I got you. And you know, and I will say, I do agree with you in the fact that, you know, this movie does take a little while to start. The opening to this film, though, had me cackling because it's like it spoofs a lot of the toy commercials that we all know. Like, we know how absurd some toy commercials are, and there's some really great toy moments in this film. But it definitely takes a little while to get going. And I think Cady, who is the girl, and again, I know, you know, she loses her parents and she's going through stuff, but it's an interesting story where it's like, okay, you know, like her aunt is going to be taking over and looking after her, and it's like they're expected to kind of like push the story forward in a very short amount of time, where in real life it's like, okay, her parents just died horrifically. You're going to spend hopefully more time, you know, developing your relationship with one another, or maybe, you know, helping her grieve a little bit more. And I guess where that's, you know, M3GAN comes in to help with that. But it's a little like expedited the timeline of everything. And then when we kind of see, it's like, oh, it's been a couple weeks. But also like kind of getting into the story and getting into, you know, M3GAN itself, I guess, is just, it takes a little time for me. So I think we could have tightened up the intro a little bit and got to it a bit sooner. But I had such a great time with this movie. I think when we look at M3GAN, there's no better way to start the year. And I think as a horror icon goes, I think M3GAN has already taken the world by storm these past couple months with her dancing and her, you know, the trailer itself when that dropped. I think everyone was talking about it. So many people have been messaging me about this movie who aren't even huge movie fans. They're just messaging saying, oh, you're seeing M3GAN. You know, even my dad is very in tune to the movie world, and we go to the movies all the time, but he is so excited for this movie because I think there's just something about it that people want to see. And I think it is that it's a little similar to like when Chucky was coming out, where it's like, oh, it's like, here's all this mayhem happening, but it's from the stall. And this is very much a 2023 version of that. But I had a great time with it, and I think this, like we were saying earlier, I think this movie knows exactly what it is. It's going to lean into the meta, it's going to lean into the absurd, and lean into all the tropes that we would expect from a horror film. But I think it's elevated because it is this little girl doll who is just, causing all this ruckus.
Would,
You know,
would you? Sorry,
go
before
ahead.
would you
No, go ahead.
consider M3GAN a mean girl?
A mean girl,
Like
she's
like
just
Mean
trying to do
Girls?
the right thing, man.
Yeah, like is she a mean girl or is she a good? Like, I don't think she's a good girl, but is she like a mean girl in the sense like? Would she like if she was real? Would she be that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Would she?
Oh, yeah.
Would she be?
Yeah. She was a popular kid. Yeah, for sure.
She would.
Definitely, she
Yeah,
would be.
for
Yeah,
sure.
and I think maybe that's what Cady kind of was looking for in her, because we don't know who Cady was, outside of knowing that her parents passed away and she was kind of addicted to her, technology. But yeah, she, Cady does reach some levels of like Jamie in like Jingle All the Way for me, where I'm just like, okay, relax. Like I get you're going through a horrible thing, but just a little like cringe at some moments. So, but it
Well,
was funny to watch.
it's
Shit.
interesting because Cady, who's played by Violet McGraw. I think she did a fantastic job because child
Oh, yeah, for
actors
sure.
usually typically it's very one dimensional sometimes for them, but she did a phenomenal performance. And the progression of her character, like when we first are introduced to her, her parents are like no screen time, or like screen time is very limited, like she can only use her devices at a certain point, so she's very well behaved. And it's funny that the introduction of technology and the introduction of no limits to that technology causes that rage within her. And honestly speaking, I have little cousins who are addicted to technology. We see kids all the time in our previous jobs who are constantly on their iPads. And if you ever seen someone take away an iPad from a little kid, it all hell breaks loose. Like they start attacking, punching, and it's screaming. And I don't want to sound like an old man here, but it's just like,
No, it's
man,
true.
like if someone ever took away my Game Boy as a kid, I was like, ah, shit, like that sucks. But like, I would get angry, I would get upset, but I never got to that level and that point that I think.
But we knew kids who would be like that, right?
That's
we know
that's,
kids
that's
who
the
would be
parents'
like
fault,
right?
That's 100% the parents'
absolutely,
fault.
and I don't
We're
want
not
to
going
get
in
into
there.
we're not going in there. But the point is that
Welcome to
progression
the
of her
Parenting Movie Podcast.
that progression of that character where she starts off being like, I'm very well behaved, I'm sweet and innocent,
Right.
and then that introduction of no holds bar of technology, and they make a lot of
Yeah.
lines like that in this movie. You start to see her character really shift and it changed completely. And I thought that was really clever the way they did that.
Yeah, and it was never, and I just want to be clear too. Like I was never criticizing the performance. I was just it made me upset watching it. I'm like, yo, Cady, what? Stop
You hate
being
Violet
this.
McGraw.
Like,
It's live.
There are
we
parts.
haven't- we haven't
There are
recorded.
points.
put
there
that
are.
out there.
Oh, I'll be honest. There are points where she is a little annoying because it's just like
Yeah,
she's just she's
But it's
acting
great.
like that
but she's
character.
supposed to be, right?
And I think we don't.
She's supposed to be.
Right, and I think when you see that, and we've kind of been in a situation where we've seen people like that, and you're just like,
Oh, of course, yeah.
I hate that kid. I hate that kid so much.
Oh yeah, I hated her. She was awful.
Yeah, but there are points where you understand because of course she lost her parents, so you understand there are, and that's where the timeline I think it goes back to Daniel, where we don't know the timeline. It feels like 2 days after she's like with her aunt and she's just living this life.
It was
It's
a couple
like,
days.
There's
after,
no
right?
mourning. There's no, and her aunt is not also. She's also not the caregiver that is motherly in a sense. Like she is a kid herself, and she's still.
She's very robotic.
She's not.
Yeah,
She's not designed to take care of children, so she's also meant
Right.
living in this situation. So there's
But
a
it was
little bit of
interesting, though.
dynamics in there.
Yeah, it was interesting though, because there is we're given a line in the film like, oh, like her I guess her grandparents in Florida want to take her to live too. So I'm just like, would have that been a better option for this poor girl? Like we don't like we're not told if the other situation's bad or not. So it's just like, oh, do you want to stay with your like kind of cold aunt, or do you want to go to your grandparents and stay with your grandparents? So I wish there was a little bit more just. Even though the beginning is long, I just wish that there was a little bit more. Like here, let's just at least give like a line or two of why that's not the best option for her to go there, because we're told multiple times like, oh, we don't want to send her there, but we're never told like why not. You know?
I agree with what you're saying, but I also think like for the whole purpose of the film, I don't think it really matters. Like in the sense that like
No,
it's definitely
but
there.
it's also just like but she's like, oh, I'm not a good like.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know
she's
how to
also
do
like
this,
she's
but I
not
still want
good.
you.
Yeah, she's not good, but
Yeah.
she's like, okay, maybe like I can get better because it's my sister and I wasn't that close with her. Because
Right.
they even have that line where it's like, "Were you close to your sister?" She's like, "What the hell does that mean?" So I, you kind of
Yeah.
wonder like, and she's like, "Oh, but the parent or the grandparents are crazy. They live in Florida and blah 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 blah." So you kind of wonder like in this movie, what I think really stood out for me about this film was that it really is just it's a movie that anyone can kind of go see, kind of almost not turn their brain off in that sense, but it's a really good movie where you
Yes.
just you have a bag of popcorn, you eat it and enjoy it, and you have a fun time, and you kind of
Yeah.
walk out. I think when you
And
start
that's the
adding that
thing.
complexity, that's when it starts to go like, is it too much?
Right, and this is why I'm thinking about it, Shay, because we spent so much time in the beginning of just them two, where it's like, okay, we're seeing like we're spending so much time here, but we're not really given anything. So that's why
Mhm.
my mind was dwelling more.
No,
It's like,
no, it's fair.
okay, why is this the better situation than what the Florida situation was, right? So that's why,
Absolutely.
because we spent so much time there, I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about this too much. Let's move on to the killer doll. You
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And that's the thing. We don't get to see the killer doll till like maybe an hour in, an hour. I don't how long is this movie? An hour and a half,
Four and a
Hour
half
40?
hours, I believe.
Oh
So
wow.
it's like when we do see killer doll action, it's very limited and short. And I
Hmm.
would say the longest period is that ending sequence. So it's almost like you said, Shay, is this a thriller or is this a horror film? I don't know what it is, and that's where I kind of was disconnected. I'm like, is what are you
Right.
giving me here? What do you want to show me? Because if you wanted to be a horror, I'm not scared because you didn't show me horrific things yet, other
Hmm.
than it's a robot that's self-aware, which at this point in time in
Right.
our life is so overplayed. But it's different because it's a kid's doll and she has these eyes and she has these,
Right.
the prep look and the hair, and she has the mannerisms of, there was a sequence with the therapist where she has the Kleenex. She was right there and she said, you made Cady cry. And
Yeah.
she's like, it's not my fault, but you still did. And it was those sinister moments were pretty
Hmm.
scary, but I wanted more. I wanted more.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting though, because there was an episode of the show called The Nightmare Room, which was like a scarier version of Goosebumps growing up. And there was an episode where this doll comes to life, and it's funny who's in it, because it's like Shia LaBeouf is like the main kid in it, and then Dylan and Cole Sprouse are they play the doll that comes to life. So like a doll coming to life is a very you know known thing, and I think AI becoming sentient, like very much Ultron-y, like that is something that we're familiar with. But I think the marriage of them together um, in this film really worked for me. It was really fun, and I think those were the best moments in this film. Was anytime M3GAN was on screen. I was just laughing so hard, and I think our audience that we watch it with were laughing too, because they know that this is supposed to be absurd, and this is supposed to be, yeah, it's a horror film, but it's not really a horror film. It's more of a horror comedy, because I think you're just there's not really jokes. You're just laughing at the situation. And I think the smartest thing they did with this film, because there was an R-rated cut, is that they made this movie PG-13, because you are going to get every single kid in high school and every single like young adult going to go see this film in theaters this week. And this would have been the movie that I would have gone to see with my friends in theaters, and we would have had like a crazy time watching. Like we already know the opening weekend for this film, I think it's going to do really well.
It's gonna do
And
really
for a film
well.
that has like a $15 million budget or so, I think it's going to make that all back this weekend.
Absolutely. It's going to make it all back and then some. It's going to do really well. It's going to be that movie that people talk about. It's going to keep going more viral. Daniel, you mentioned that we're probably going to be seeing this as a Halloween costume this year, without a
Yep.
doubt. Without a doubt, we'll be seeing this as a Halloween costume. So, yeah, I'm not surprised. This movie is just a lot of fun. It's just a
It
good
is.
time. Will this movie be in my top 10 at the end of the year? I don't know. We'll have to
It's number
see.
one right now.
It's number
It's
one
number
right
one right
now.
now.
But as of right now, like, did I have a fun time with it? Did it deliver what it promised to deliver? Probably not for everybody. But in my eyes, what it gave me instead was something that I still had a good time with, and I was still palatable for me.
Well, okay, Shay. Well, since you're you're feeling like you're closing your sentence right now, let's get
Am
you to start us
I?
off. Your final reactions, your final recommendations. Sorry, your final reactions. What year is it?
Final
Your final
reaction?
recommendations. Sorry, it's been a while since we've done a review, so it's been almost a month.
No, you're not wrong.
Let's get to your final recommendations for M3GAN.
Watch it. I think this is a really fun film. Go to the theater. The crowd is what makes this movie so much fun as well. But definitely go watch it. It's a really good time.
Anthony.
This would be added to the queue for me. I didn't have a lot of great time. I know I was sitting right next to Shay, but yeah, it just didn't speak
You're
to
actually
me.
sitting next to me, but that's okay.
That's
Did
true.
you forget who you're sitting next to?
Uh,
Well, I was
well,
sitting
I'm
next to
just-
Daniel, so I guess through Daniel you were sitting next
See,
to me.
I don't even pay attention to who's sitting next to me. You know,
How can you
We're-
trust
Shay
your
and I are
review?
interchangeable. It's fine.
How can you trust
you trust my
Anthony's
review because my eyes were literally on the screen. I didn't, tunnel vision. Just that's all I see.
Yeah.
Right.
But were your eyes blinking though?
No.
Were the eyes blinking?
No, my eyes don't blink. I don't blink.
Super dry,
Oh.
super dry
Yeah.
eyes.
No, I don't
Anthony
even-
doesn't blink and Anthony doesn't dream. That's what we know about him.
Yeah.
I don't
You know,
even
no
blink.
blinking, no dreaming.
What fact will we
blinks?
learn in 2024?
You know?
I don't
Hasn't
know.
drank
don't
a
know.
glass of water in 18 years. Oh, that's not good.
No, no, that's too long.
I
man.
think I
That's
would
too
be
long.
dead. Man, I would be
No, you
dead
just-
if I didn't drink any water. What am I drinking?
I don't know. You're drinking Coke Zero and I don't know tequila.
Wow.
That's a
Delamana.
dangerous diet, man. I'll be
But
honest.
yeah,
That's
this is
a
an
dangerous diet.
added to the queue for me.
For myself, I am going to say watch it. I had a great time with this film. I think Universal has been, with A24 being the home of some of the best horror that we've had in the last decade. And I think Blumhouse is a huge contributor to that. And I'm just really excited to see what they continue to do. More lower budget horror films. We've seen what Smile has done. We've seen what X and Pearl and so many more horror films have done over the last few years. I think there's been a great return in investment for them. And also they're just really well made. We're living in a time of really great horror films. So I'm hoping this trend continues. M3GAN is a great time. Go watch it. Thank you so much for listening to the movie podcast review of M3GAN. Like we said, this film is going to be releasing in theaters on January 6th. So make sure you go check it out. Thank you again to our friends at Universal Pictures for inviting us to watch it. And of course, check out all the amazing episodes and videos that we are dropping on the Movie Podcast, either on the Movie Podcast feed or across our socials at the Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. You don't want to miss any of it. 2023 is going to be a wild ride, and you want to be on this ride. You are tall enough to ride, so make sure you join us here on the Movie Podcast. That was this time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.